Today, we are going to be doing the most, we're going to be ranking the most famous generals, or rather, we're just going to be ranking some famous generals throughout all of history. Um, it's a bit of an American list. There's only, like 8 people, so it's nothing too crazy. There are some people that, I didn't really do focus a lot on World War II, World War One. I kind of kept it in the mainframe of the U.S. mindset, or there's still some world generals and all. But yeah, let's get into it. Starting off, we have George Washington. Now, George Washington is very glazed in the U.S. He created the U.S. He founded it with other men, of course, but he was the general. Um, but the real problem is he kind of wasn't that good of a general, to be completely honest. He was a bit brash. Um, he, he was brash that sometimes, he did cross the Delaware River. That's really cool. But also, he wasn't the backbone of the military success in the U.S. He was good, but he wasn't anything special. And I wouldn't say that his general actions won the U.S. the war. It was also a part of, like, okay, well, the British are across an entire ocean. It takes a long time to get troops and supplies here, so the odds were against him. But I will say he was not a bad general by any means. So we're gonna be putting him in. Let's go B tier. B tier. Solid general, nothing too crazy, a little overhyped, but he's still a good general nonetheless. Next, we got Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox. He is incredibly glazed, and there's a reason for it. And I like Erwin Rommel. He's a bit of a. It's not like a myth type thing, but he is a mythicized general. He was good for a situation. Okay, they didn't have a lot of supplies in Northern Africa. They didn't have, fuel for their tanks. They were, to be completely honest, the odds were against him. And he did pretty good with what he had. Do I think he was an extremely good general? I just don't. I don't think he was anything insane. I just think he was a quality general, perhaps like a top tier general for Nazi Germany. But was he truly the force that some of those other generals that I will talk about later were? Not. He just wasn't. And of course, he failed. He lost, and it wasn't like, I will say, Napoleon. The odds were against him. There were a lot of people fighting him. Erwin Rommel, I'm pretty sure he was outnumbered, and he did have the Italians, who notoriously were terrible, and really the Germans were the only ones who were actually doing something. But to get into why he was mythicized, um, he was, if you want to call it, a better Nazi than the rest of them. He wouldn't really like focus on oppressing the Jews. Like, he was notorious for not like being a terrible person, even though he was still part of the Nazi Party. And it's very likely he tried to assassinate Hitler, and that's why they killed him, or they made him commit suicide. Um, but he didn't like kill Jews in North Africa, and he refused to execute soldiers. And people say that he didn't listen to Hitler's orders because he thought, he disagreed with Hitler. I think probably some of that's true, and um, that's why I'm gonna personally have to say that, like, what I would say is that's why he's so notorious for being a good general, because the British really liked him. They thought he was a valiant foe who was a good general, but perhaps, you know was a good person as well, in a sense. Like, he was the one of the better ones according to the British and stuff like that. So for me personally, I'm gonna have to put Erwin Rommel in the B tier as well. Now this is, I mean, if we're looking at all time, he'd be an S tier, of course, but we're talking about these top tier generals, which means he's not special in any scenario. Um, Next, we got a big one here. We got Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar, incredible general. I, I'm gonna be honest here. People do overhype him, but he still, to me at least, lives up to the hype just because the amount. He's an incredible strategist. He's a tactician, but I will have to say he had everything in his favor, at least for the most part. I mean, he's from an empire. Like, he had a lot of backing compared to um, these tribes from Gaul that weren't, they had the advantage of knowing the terrain, but were they truly as powerful as um, as the Romans? Not really, not really. So, I mean, he did defeat some really good generals for these Gaul and Germanic tribes, but was he truly that guy? Like, was he truly like upsetting the odds? Not really, in my opinion. Now, it was still crazy. I mean, Rome. He, of course, is really famous. He basically exploded Rome into the S tier it is today, where Rome is just constantly thought about by men. Um, so, for me personally, at least, I'm gonna say Julius Caesar is an S tier just because he was that guy and he still is that guy. And, Hitler and Napoleon and a lot of other people really liked him. Maybe not Hitler so much, but Napoleon really liked him. He was Napoleon's inspiration. There were a lot of people who, loved Julius Caesar and he was the inspiration for a lot. So, of course, I will have to put Julius Caesar in S tier because he's just that guy. Next, we got Genghis Khan. Now, Genghis Khan, it's a bit of a sticky situation here because Genghis Khan didn't expand um, the empire to its max height like a lot of people think he did. That was over years and years and years, and that was when his son, was it Sublai? I know Kublai Khan was his grandson, and he wasn't as much of a general, more as like a ruler. He was a really good ruler. Sublai, I think, was his son. If I were to guess, there's some family relationship there. He was probably the better general between the two, but of course, Genghis Khan got the ball rolling, so I have to give him tons of credit. He united the Mongolian tribes, and sorry, and he defeated the Chinese. Like, he was doing good against the Chinese, um, which China was a big power. Was it the I couldn't tell you what dynasty it was, but it was. China's always been relevant for a long time, and he beat them. And of course, he did. He was what I say, the first mobile tactician in history up to that time. There was not really anybody who really won. Like, nobody was insanely good at mobile attacks and retreats and movement until Genghis Khan brought it to its fame that it is, and it was really popular. And it was popular for a long time until now, where it's like you can't really be as mobile. You can still be as mobile, but anyways, he was famous for that. So for me personally, he's that guy again. Like Julius Caesar, he's just that guy. He started an insane empire. I will have to put him in S tier. Subai was really good too, but Genghis Khan probably was less than him, but he was still that guy, and I have to give him credit for that. Next, this one, probably one of my personal favorites. I think he's he's the GOAT in my opinion. It's Napoleon. Napoleon upset the odds a lot. People don't really realize when Napoleon he was fighting against empire after empire. He was fighting multiple empires at the same time, and he was doing really good. It's actually insane. He lost, and he came back. And my screen turned off. He came back, persevered, and he brought them back to fame again. And then they were again. defeated and he was exiled for the rest of his life. But he was a real, like, he was a game changer. I don't think he changed the world a lot. Um, a lot of people look up to him today because he was just such a good tactician. I do have to say, Napoleon did have some bad losses. He had some bad decisions here and there, but his good decisions personally outweigh his bad decisions. He did so much with not so little. He had an entire country behind him, but again, he's defeating empires. He's defeating a lot of forces. He's going everywhere. And he probably would have won if the Navy was up to his standards of maybe invading the UK. Sorry, invading the UK, but they weren't, and they never will be. So there wasn't really much he could do there. But besides that, like on mainland Europe, he was destroying everybody. So for me personally, at least, I'm gonna have to give him S tier. Some people really think he's glazed too much. I just think they kind of don't take into account his enemies. You have to take into account the enemies. Genghis Khan, he fought he fought China. Napoleon, he fought pretty much half of Europe. Um, and then like there was alliances created just to stop him. And then Julius Caesar, of course, he he had some lesser opponents, but it was a big deal for the amount of space and land, and the amount of battles he won. It was a big thing, especially at that time. But for Napoleon, crazy enemies, and he was doing really good. So again, I'm gonna have to put him in S tier. That's three S tiers, but I think they all deserve it. Um, Now we're getting into some more American parts here. We're gonna go with Ulysses S. Grant. Now, Grant often, he's less respected compared to um, Robert E. Lee, which I'll get into that later. But Ulysses S. Grant, people always say, "Oh, he just threw his men at the enemy." He had the numbers in his favor, which he did, and he just threw them at Robert E. Lee and the other generals, and he won purely off numbers, and he was a drunk, and he wasn't actually a general. He was a general. He was a full tactician. He did good. He rose to fame throughout the war. He won the war. If it weren't for him, and I will say, Sherman did good too. Sherman was a great general. I think Ulysses S. Grant is just better. But, of course, I think Sherman did good because of Grant. But anyways, Grant is just a really GOAT for the U.S. I don't think he's respected as much as he should be. People love to talk about Robert E. Lee. They don't talk about Grant as much as him. It's insane because I'm pretty sure statistically Grant was a better general. Like he lost less men and killed more men or something like that. He was statistically a better general, and I will say you're gonna be a better general if you have the numbers on your side. So I'll give him that, or I'll give Robert E. Lee that. But again, Ulysses S. Grant, in my opinion, is just a better general. Because if we're being completely honest here, the Union was doing pretty bad up to the point where Ulysses S. Grant started to go wild, and he fought in the Western Theater and the Eastern Theater. Um, he changed the game a lot, so I'm gonna have to put him in. I want to put him in A, but that's just got a little bit of an American bias here. So I'm gonna put him in B, just out of respect for all the other generals that did way more and they were way better. But he was still really good, so I have to give him credit for that. Now we have Robert E. Lee. Now, Robert E. Lee, and I'm one of those people who think he's a little overglazed. He's a great general. I won't doubt that. He had better supporting cast. He did have his problems, I can't remember. it was either him or Stonewall Jackson, where they were like, one of them was really up to like you have to do exactly how I say, and the other was like notorious for just like do what you want kind of thing. Like he didn't have that strict of a command. But for Robert E. Lee, he's a great general. Don't get me wrong on that. Incredible victory at Chancellorsville, of course, with the help of Jackson. But he he's an incredible general, and he basically was the only strong piece for the Confederacy for basically the entire war. Um, but I do think it was a bit boneheaded of him to try and invade into Union territory because you're just not going to win that. I don't care what people say. There was absolutely no way he would have actually got to Washington or done anything insane. And I think that was one of his major downfalls is because, and similar to, Napoleon invaded Russia, he went a little too deep. And, Grant, I don't know if Grant had any big failure, but for Robert E. Lee, I would say that trying to invade the Union was just not a good idea. Next, oh, I forgot to write. Robert E. Lee, I'm going B's here. I think him and Grant just got to be equal because Robert E. Lee did have the odds against him. Alexander Great. Alexander the Great. He was the real top G. Off the bat, S tier. I'm just gonna have to put him in S tier. I know all these are a little high, um, but I have to be completely honest here. Alexander the Great is just up there. A lot of these guys are up there. These are really famous generals. Um, the amount of land he conquered in such a short time is unseen. It's insane. And especially in that time where logistics were hard to carry out. Um, he had a vast empire. He inspired a lot of generals after him. Um, but he was a brash fighter. He threw himself in there, and it could be dangerous if maybe he faced a more competent opponent. Not saying he didn't face any good opponents, but it wasn't to the level of Napoleon. But I will have to put him in S tier again, just out of respect. And yeah, that's my list. So we're gonna end it there.